56 games into the 2019-20 NBA season, the Detroit Pistons had a record of 19-37 and were just coming off a recent loss to the Charlotte Hornets in which they only put up 76 points. And that wasn't even the scariest thing. The scariest thing was the fact that their lineup consisted of Bruce Brown, Tony Snell, Reggie Jackson, Thon Maker, Christian Wood, Langston Galloway, Markieff Morris, Sekou Doumbouya, John Henson, and Brandon Knight. I feel genuinely uncomfortable saying those guys were playing significant minutes on an NBA team that I happen to support like 2/3 of the way into the season. It wasn't the end of the season. There was still, in theory, 25 games to go, and we were getting 20 minutes a night from Brandon Knight and John Henson alongside Thon Maker. It was a bit of an issue, to say the least. But why did I mention 56? Why did I mention 56 games into last season? There's not much to it, I'm afraid. It's just the fact that we've played 56 games into the 2020-21 season at the time of recording, and, well, we're 17-39. 2 wins less than we had last year, yet if I asked Pistons fans, if I polled Pistons fan, what team would you be more excited for? The Brandon Knight and John Henson team, or the Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey, Killian Hayes, Jeremy Grant led team? I think I'd kind of know the answer. But how did the Pistons go from that to looking like one of the more promising young teams in the NBA? Now, before I actually explain that, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be much appreciated. I make content like this pretty regularly. I also make a lot of Pistons content, so if you're just a Pistons fan, then you'll probably like the channel as well. Now, just to understand how quickly and how significant a turnaround Troy Weaver and the Detroit Pistons actually made to this franchise, we have to look at what this team was last year. Like I mentioned, John Henson, Brandon Knight. The names pretty much say it all. Now, heading into this year, being the optimistic fan I am, I thought, look, if we re-sign Christian Wood, if we get Blake Griffin back to 90% of what he was in his All-Star year, if we get LaMelo Ball, which is who I wanted us to get, if we get a good free agent, then all of a sudden, all 4 of those things happen. We're a playoff team again. We're back in the race, baby, and we're looking good. None of those 4 things happened, but just looking forward now, we finally have a clear direction. That team would have been cool and all, but you still would have had to deal with Blake Griffin, all of these old guys and a few young guys. It just would have been an interesting mix. Now we have a clear direction, and not only have we put in place a plan, but we have executed nearly perfectly so far. Nearly damn perfect so far on the execution stage, because it's one thing to put a plan in place. I mean, NBA teams are always putting a plan in place, as you would hope, but to execute so well in just year 1 of a rebuild is great, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Now, at the time of the offseason, not everyone was a fan of the moves the Detroit Pistons made. NBA executives, whatever that means, I never really know what that actually means. Is it like the guy cleaning the floors? Is it the general manager? Is it the guy taking phone calls? Is it the secretary? None of us really know, but NBA executives, so they must know something, polled the Detroit Pistons as the worst team in the league based off their offseason. I didn't really word that particularly well. Basically, they had the worst season in the league, according to NBA executives. And what does this tell us? Well, for one, like we already knew, some NBA executives are dumb. And another thing is, well, these NBA executives that probably thought they fleeced Detroit, like the Clippers, for getting Luke Kennard, Saddiq Bey, what a fleece. Not quite. Those executives probably thought they fleeced Detroit, when on the other hand, it was the other way around. So that's probably how it worked out. But we saw a lot of people saying the Pistons were having a confusing offseason. I heard it from people on podcasts, you name it. There were a lot of sources of people questioning the Detroit Pistons offseason. And it's safe to say, they had a pretty damn good offseason. You just look at the draft first. That's where we're going to start. They snagged Killian Hayes with the 7th overall pick, Isaiah Stewart with the 16th overall pick, who we're going to talk about because these so-called experts as well thought that Isaiah Stewart was just going to be one of those big old centers that should have been stuck in the 70s, can't move his feet, can't shoot the ball, has no upside, is just going to be an average rotation center. Well, that's looking completely wrong. They then traded Luke Kennard and some seconds for Saddiq Bey, who's already one of the best rookies in the league, and picked up Saben Lee, who shouldn't be overlooked because he's one of the best second-round picks out of the draft. For me, that's 4 out of 4. That is 4 out of 4. Just going off what we've seen with our very own eyes, those are all good draft picks. Pretty damn great draft picks, actually. And then moving past the draft and onto the offseason, Weaver clearly had a very long-lasting itch, and he wanted to sign every single center available in the NBA. Why? I don't know. But in the end, it was all for good reason because they managed to get Jeremy Grant $60 million over 3 years, which at the time, again, was ridiculed. What are they doing signing Jeremy Grant? You get the point. He's turned out to be a fantastic signing, $20 million a year. I think that is well within the price range for someone of his ability. Then you have Mason Plumlee, who is frustrating to watch, but at the same time, he's a good mentor. It's better than having Jahlil Okafor play 30 minutes a night. And I think Isaiah Stewart is slowly building into the role where he's looking like an NBA starting center. But it's been moments where you've seen why Mason Plumlee is important to have when he struggles on some nights. Stewart, so I think he's been a solid pickup. You then have Josh Jackson, who I think is a good pickup. He's exactly the kind of pickup you go for in a rebuild. High upside, very low risk, and he's turned out to be pretty good. I think his decision making and his three-point shot is holding him back from being a really solid NBA player at the moment. I'd probably say he's a good bench player as a spark plug off the bench, but if he can tidy up that three-point shooting and that decision making with his ability to get to the rim, then all of a sudden he could be a genuine starting level player with his defense as well. But until he does that, I think on a good team, he's more of a bench player, but he's still been a solid pickup. And then Frank Jackson as well, one of the more underrated pickups of the year, someone who I thought was 28 years of age, pretty much up until the other week where I realized he's actually 22, which makes this pickup a whole lot better because he's someone that's a good three-point shooter, a good defender, again, 22, spark plug off the bench. You can't complain about that offseason when you just look at the signings outside of the draft. Altogether, that was the offseason of the Detroit Pistons, and let's just look at what these guys have been able to do. There's really no better place than to start with Killian Hayes. I mean, the highlight play against the OKC Thunder in which he whipped that pass like a bowling ball around a couple of defenders into the lane for Saddiq Bey for a reverse layup. That was a fantastic pass. Bleacher Report posted that. The NBA posted that. Probably the first Bleacher Report Pistons post that doesn't involve the Pistons losing or something of that nature in about 4 years, but it was still cool to see. However, I mean, we've seen Killian Hayes make 5 or 6 passes better than any player on the Pistons roster all year in the last 5 games since he's returned. So honestly, I'm not that surprised. Also, his intelligence is something that you like to see. You see him make the right plays. Like I've seen Isaiah Stewart post up and Killian realizes that he doesn't have the right position or that the guy in front of Killian might be able to pick it off or someone will come over and pick it off. So then he tries to move the ball along the side and then get it into Isaiah Stewart from a different angle. Like he just recognizes those smaller things. Like an example was when Mason Plumlee was posting up and the center was just waiting for Hayes to drop it in so he could come over and then help defend. Killian Hayes brought him back out and then dropped it into Plumlee. Easy bucket, easy foul. Those are the kind of things he does. Just the little things, but just the high IQ kind of plays that you don't always see from rookies, and those are the kind of things that you can't teach. So he does a lot of those intangible things. His vision, his passing, his IQ is great. He's already well ahead of the curve defensively. I mean, since he's come back, he's had 11 steals and 5 blocks in just 5 games. I mean, 9 steals and 3 blocks of those were against the Thunder in just 2 games. 9 steals in 2 games against one team. That is absurd. But defensively, outside of the steals and the blocks, he's been great. Like, you can see the potential he has there. And just speaking about those Thunder games in which Hayes, Stewart, and Bey have been able to kind of dominate those games or look really good, it just speaks to where they are in comparison to other rookies. The OKC Thunder didn't have SGA. They didn't have a few other players in these games, but you just look at Killian Hayes and Isaiah Stewart and Saddiq Bey playing so well, and then you look at the profile of the other team and you see, yeah, these guys are really good when you compare them to other young players in the league. And that's ultimately a good thing to see because it's cool seeing them going up against starting level players, but when you see them going up against other young teams and they're winning and they're looking really comfortable out there, that's when you know they're right up the top of the very best rookies in the league. I think if there's a few things to work on, maybe he could develop a right hand. He is very left-hand dominant. Also, his jump shot, I think it's there. He just needs to become more comfortable. He needs to get a bit stronger so he can get to the rim better. Pretty much those are the things that I'd say he needs to work on, consistently finding that shot. But apart from that, his vision, you see flashes of exactly why he was the 7th overall pick. And then over the last 5 games, you've actually seen some production as well, which is cool because it's all good and well watching the games like we do and seeing him do those things. but for other people, they need to see the production, and now we're seeing it. Over the last 5 games, he's averaging nearly 8 points, 4.5 assists, which is a huge difference than what he was doing before, which was like 3 points and 2 assists. So that's a major difference, and he just looks significantly better. So now the production is coming with the eye test as well. And let's quickly talk about Saben Lee, because he's been great as well. I see him being a steady backup for time to come. Maybe he's going to be better. I don't really know. I'm not going to put a ceiling on him, but I see him at least being a solid NBA role player that can come in and change the tempo of the game. And then moving on to the guys that we love, Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey. I mean, Isaiah Stewart has been fantastic. And let's just read a couple of scouting reports about Isaiah Stewart, because it always puts a smile on my face seeing what these experts had to say about the big Stu after we drafted him. But the funniest thing I saw was, I quote, "Stewart looked like a change of pace reserved big. This is a massive reach if that's the role expected for him, and it's just as head-scratching if Detroit thinks it can squeeze more mileage out of him." It's just as head-scratching if they think they can get more out of him than him just being a reserve big, a guy that should have been stuck in the 70s, a guy that doesn't fit in the modern-day NBA, a guy that's not going to have much upside, he can't shoot the ball, he can't move his feet. Well, I don't know. Again, I didn't watch college basketball, but it seems like he's made a huge stride in just a year. So if he can make that kind of stride in 1 year, then what can I think of him doing in 3 or 4 years? Because all of a sudden, he's already shown he can defend the pick and roll. He's already shown he can block shots. He's already shown he can face up and hit mid-range jump shots. He can hit three-point shots, shooting 40% on 11 of 27 threes on the season. Limited sample size, but his shot looks good. As I mentioned, his mid-range shot looks even better. Oh, he just had 21 rebounds against the Thunder. Nothing crazy about that. He's been productive over the last 20 or so games. He's averaging 9.7 boards a game. The sky is genuinely the limit for Isaiah Stewart. And then Saddiq Bey, I mean, one of the best rookies in the class. He's been unbelievable. A solid defender. Like, he's literally taken over games against playoff-level teams. He scored 30 points against the Boston Celtics. He's had multiple 20-point games over the last 30 games. He's third amongst rookies in scoring at just under 14 a game. He's making more threes than any other rookie in the league and shooting 38% on over 7 threes a game, which is just absurd. Those are ridiculous numbers. Also shooting 90% from the free throw line. If you wonder if that can translate to mid-range and off the dribble, I think it will, because his shooting stroke is pure. He's got an amazing jump shot. I mean, over the last 7 games, averaging 17 points on close to 50, 40, 90. He's just getting better. Every single game, it looks like he's more confident. It looks like he's more comfortable. He's getting to the rim more now. He's shooting off the dribble. Some nights he doesn't shoot well from 3, but then he'll get to the free throw line. He'll rebound. He'll defend. He does everything well. He's just fantastic. There's not much to say about Saddiq Bey. I don't know what ceiling I'm going to put on him. I can't put a ceiling on any of these rookies, honestly. When you see the vision of Killian Hayes, when you see the improvement of Isaiah Stewart, when you see the consistency of Saddiq Bey, even Saben Lee is really solid. And then next year's draft, we're getting Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham. I've had inside word, we're getting one of them. Adam Silver has relayed that to me. Yeah, we're getting one of them. Once we get those guys, put them in the lineup. Killian Hayes, Jalen Green, Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey, Jeremy Grant. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Sekou Doumbouya coming off the bench, averaging 20 points a game. I haven't given up on Sekou either, but these are the guys that have clearly made the biggest difference and look like the most promising. Sekou, I think, still has promise, and there are other guys with promise. That these are the guys that are the cornerstones of the franchise. There's just no denying that right now. Ultimately, you just need to give a round of applause to Troy Weaver, and I'm going to give the wealthy rounds of applause because my microphone is in my hand, but you just need to give a round of applause to Troy Weaver and Dwayne Casey because they've done a fantastic job. I mean, the Pistons, if they had have won some close games, they'd be in the play-in game. They've been competitive all season long while blooding rookies, while getting minutes into guys like Stewart and Saddiq Bey consistently. They're doing everything well, and the turnaround from a team that genuinely looked pretty hopeless to now one of the more promising teams in the future in just 1 year, with the potential to get a top pick this year. Don't get our hopes up too high, but if we get a top pick, I mean, it's crazy because we're going to be the best young core in the league. That might be a little bit biased, but they're looking very good. That's all I can say. What else do I need to say? The Detroit Pistons have gone from hopeless to hopeful. Genuinely, that's exactly what's happened in the space of a year. Shout out to Troy Weaver. You have made the moves necessary, and all of a sudden, it's good being a Detroit Pistons fan again. If you enjoyed the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. Have a good day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.